Good morning, Gary Williams, all round angling. We're on lockdown at the moment and we can't get out there fishing, so I thought I'd build maybe a picture together of how to maintain some of your tackle while we're off on this lockdown. We can't go out fishing, so we'll start with the basics. Firstly, and I recommend this for anybody, I collect reels. I maintain the reels, I look after the reels. Some of them are ancient. I can pick anything, you know, and I'm quite okay. And I'm not going to recommend a lot of reels. Some of the reels for maintaining, I would always recommend you take them to a good send them to a good service department to get them done properly. If you look around and you shop around online, you will find people who do this as a profession. Manchester Rod Reel Repair Centre with Dave Kelly in Manchester is a good place to go to get any complicated reels. You'd start taking into consideration a lot of reels. Let's take for instance a well maintained, which you may have something similar to a Stradic 4000 GTM, something like that. If it's maintained, these are a work of art. The design's Shimano in such a way that once you start taking these apart, and without a little bit of knowledge of how to take them apart and all the rest of it, you can do more damage to them than good. So I would never recommend. Always keep them clean. Always keep them clean. Things like you can take the ratchets off the end of them and clean all the grit out of them, things like that. But yearly you should send them to be repaired. The Shimano, the modern sort of Shimanos, the complex ones like these with fighting drag on them and things like that, which are ideal for spinning and things like that, they're quite complex, quite delicate as well, but they can get clogged up. They've sort of like got round the clogging up systems on a lot of these more modern, smaller sort of ones, but again with the fighting drag, rear drag on them and all the rest of it, they can be quite complex. You start getting into a lot of other old reels and things like that, or you got into something like a Pen 6.0 multiplier or something like that. You don't want to be mucking around with things like this. You know what I mean? You start mucking around with things like this and you don't know what you're doing, you're going to do more damage than good. So, what we're going to do with Cheap Cheerful, they're absolutely gorgeous, they're simplified. In actual fact, it's going back to the old school. Now what I'm saying by old school is, Mitchell actually designed as far as I was concerned, there's a lot of other ones out there, Intrepid Princes and things like that, but Mitchell designed the 300, the Garcia, and it's a work of art, a quick release on it. It was easy to maintain, had some fiddly springs in the bail arm and all the rest of it, but apart from that, they more or less got it right first time, and it stood the test of time, and I still use these. Absolutely gorgeous. They don't run as well, they haven't got a lot of bearings in them. Technology's moved on a long way. So taking something like the 300A, they moved on to the 440A. Much better, smoother, absolute gorgeous piece of kit. These machine they can be maintained quite easily if you know they're a bit fiddly and you've got obviously get the old goggles on. But now there's a lot of generic sort of type reels coming out. Classic would be the Cadence, absolutely full of bearings, spins gorgeously. You still need to be cleaned and maintained. You know what? The drags on them are absolutely superb, especially on the Cadence. I believe it could be carbon drag actually. I'm pretty certain it's carbon drag in these. So absolutely gorgeous, designed really well. Obviously the balance on them is perfect. Obviously they've got it right. There's a lot of generic reels out there that they're all based on. I mean the Kuma, the Finer Pro, there's virtually no bearings in it. All the same system. So what we're going to do is we're going to take one of these generic starter reels. I've never taken this one apart. This is a Catana 4000 FC. People will have very similar reels, generic ones, I would imagine Preston, Matrix, all these companies who are producing reels are all on these generic frames. They're very simple, they're not complicated, easy to maintain. So what we're going to do is, for maintaining reels and cleaning them and all the rest of it, which is most important, beautiful drags on a lot of these, absolutely, and it's going back to the old school again. The front drag on them, just tidied everything up, a lot of bearings in them, smoothed them out, got the balance just perfect. So what we're going to do, and much more robust bail arms, they take a battering. None of this is going to be, you don't really need to maintain, but cleaning it is essential. So what we're going to do, we'll show you taking one of these apart. Simple tools, little things like pliers, good quality screwdrivers, simple things like soap and water, tissue, cotton buds. Tend to use a lot of toothpicks and things like that. I use a very light machine oil when I'm putting on areas, because you don't want rust getting into these things. And in this little tub here I have synthetic grease. There's a lot of companies out there that do synthetic grease, like Penn, Berkeley, a lot of specialist companies out there. But the white synthetic type grease is high performance ones. I mean, this one in particular that I use is for CNC machines that will run up to 20,000 RPM, 24 hours a day for many years, and the bearings never give in. This stuff is the best. I mean, it's quality. So anyway, we'll show you how to do it. We'll get the cameras in nice and close, and we'll see how it goes. Right, when you're doing a reel like this, slurping my coffee. Put that coffee out of the way. Whenever I'm working on reels like this, always a good recommendation to put a towel out on a flat surface with all your tools that you need around you. And the first thing we're going to do is, because we're going to clean and maintain it, is we're going to take away apart the basics and give it a clean. Now I'm going to recommend certain things you do. One is we will be using a water dispersant to make sure that we get no corrosion, but the one thing that's most important is not to get any of that sort of stuff on monofilament lines or braids if you use them. So the first thing we're going to do, because we don't need to get any of that WD-40, this sort of stuff, actually on, and you know, you can get WD-40 anywhere, you know what I mean. It's cheap and cheerful, it does the job. So put WD-40 out of the way. So the first thing we need to do is take that spool off, and we don't want to be getting any of that stuff on the drag system at all. So obviously unspool the front of it, bam, 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 bam. Nice and quickly. Put everything safe on the table in front of you. There we go. So the spool's off, we don't want to get anything on that. The other thing I would recommend is taking the handle off. A lot of these generic type reels, apart from the cadence type ones, which is completely different the way that the handle works, but the majority of them work in the same sort of way. What I tend to do is take the screw out. You tend to get a little cap on the end of it there. You can do that straight away, this maintenance on that, but what we want to do is we don't really want to get a lot of stuff on this. So I would suggest that you get a bit of tissue on this one. Stick a little bit of WD-40 on the tissue. Only a little bit. Don't need a lot. And we'll wipe over the surfaces on that. Make sure that there's no grit. Just get all the grit out of there. Use a cotton bud for this. In all the joints, just slide that up a little bit so the joints are all clean. Get all the, because when we're on the rivers and things like that, you get a lot of sand in this sort of stuff. It's handy to get it out. So absolutely gorgeous. What I would suggest then, always do it, is if I was to get a toothpick, and in this cup here I have got some light machine oil. 3-in-1 oil would do it, I suppose, but light machine oil, I tend to use machine oils from work. I would smear a little bit on those areas there. It's tiny, it's minuscule amounts. I'll put that there. There we go. So that's done. The other bit I would suggest doing is on the back of the locking screws that go on onto the, if you can see that on the back of, you've got, what's the name, always handy to put a little bit of grease, and it is a small amount of grease. Just get a little bit on the end of a toothpick, and I would always suggest, and you don't have to go bonkers with this, it's a tiny little drop on it. We'll just stick that there, use that again later, and we don't want to be losing that, so you can pop that screw quite carefully. You would pop that screw back in for safekeeping. Okay, we'll just pop that in there for now, and we'll put that back in later, just so we don't lose it. And we'll put this out of the way, because that's been done as far as I'm concerned. It's been cleaned, we wiped it down very gently. Right, using the same tissue again, we don't want to get any of that sand or grit or anything like that inside this reel. So in the rotor sections, I will wipe them out with some tissue, get into the edges of the rotor, wipe all that grit out, any grit there, and we'll dispose of this after as soon as we've done this. So anywhere on those reels, on that reel, is any grit, sand or anything like that, wipe that out. Along the body, the back of it, anything where you know that there's going to be some grit, because the last thing you want to do is get this inside the, you know, like inside the reel. Right, that is all wiped down beautifully. I would say if they were completely cruddied up, if you've got a lot of ground bait and things like that on them, like soap and water and a sponge to wipe the body down, but dry it afterwards, light dab of WD-40, which is brilliant to keep rust away, especially on screws and things like that. Now, a lot of these generic type reels, you'll find that the covers will have 2 screws, this area and this area here, and possibly one in the back cap. So what we'll do is, you'll find that maybe 1 or 2 of the screws may be a different size. So what we'll do is get the correct screwdriver for the job, and we'll pop off the 2 screws here first. So we'll pop the screws off, put them somewhere safe. You'll usually find there's either 2 or 3 screws holding these together. Pop them out. Come on, got a fiddly one. There you are, 2 screws out. So we've got the 2 screws out of that area there, and you'll find that there'll be an end cap on them on here. So what we'll do is with screwdriver again, put my goggles on for this one. Yeah, it's a little bit smaller. Get that screwdriver. Oops, not that screwdriver. I think that one will do it. There we go. Much shorter screw in this back end cap, and we'll put that out. What we'll do is undo that screw there. Take that screw out. What you'll find then is the back part of the body, this part, should slide off. So I tend to use something like the back end of what's the name, nail file or something like that. Now once it's been levered up, protective cap should just slide off, and have a look inside. Again, there's some tissue, you'll get a little bit of dirt going inside, but there you are, the cap's come off, which is reveal the body. And the back of the body there, you'll see that there may be a little bit of grit in there or anything like that. Wipe that grit out. Once you've done that, you will always find that there'll be another hidden screw, and in this case there's one more screw in the back here. So screwdriver again, and we'll take this screw out. Simple. Right, once that screws out, what you'll find then is the arm and body will come off. So once the arm and body's come off like that, have a look around this one here. There's no grit or anything inside this one. Nice little bearing in there. We don't have to put, these are seal bearings, so you don't have to really do anything with these bearings. But the rotors and things like that, it can run quite dry and you can get grit, and just a quick look around, I can already see there's grit inside this. So what we're going to do is we're going to wipe that grit out. Sand, everything gets in every little nook and cranny. Some people might suggest use an airline, but I wouldn't, because you don't want to be blowing all this stuff inside. What you'll tend to find then is that the rotors, you can move them around, and you don't want to be scared. There's a little bit of grease in there, but it's not the best. So what we're going to do now is we're going to show you how to re-grease it. There will be no oil going in this section, it's just pure grease. So again, we'll get your cotton bud, or in this case I use a toothpick, and we'll put some grease on there. And what we'll do is we'll get that into the rotor sections and grease, little bits of grease all around those moving parts, all those cogs and things like that. Okay. There's a little brass washer there. What we'll do is we'll put a little bit of grease on that little brass washer. And there we have it. You don't have to go bonkers, we just got to, if you don't want to be putting too much grease on, you put too much grease on, it'll run like a bag of crap, believe me. So all that's in there now, and what we need to do now is get that back going again. So you can see, I've cleaned it, there's no sand in there or anything like that. It's been sealed quite well. The grease is there on the inside of the teeth of that rotor. Plenty and more than enough. Then we'll take the body again and pop it back in. Right, once we slotted that back in, as you can see, it's slotted in nice and carefully back into the area. Sometimes you might have to undo the screw to actually get it out, but the majority of the time you don't have to. Usually a little bit fiddly going back in. So what we'll do now, the back cover. Right, now what we've got to do is we'll go put all this back together again. So the first thing we do is we take the main screw in the body there, and we'll pop that back in there. Nice and tight, and then we'll slide that back cowling back in. Right, once that back cowling is back in, there's, like I said, there's two screws holding that cowling in. We'll get another screw, pop it in there, we'll tighten that one back up, nice and tight, lovely, done. Then the other small screw will pop back into the base. back in. 2 main body screws. Perfect. And what we'll do is put the handle back on. You can just pop that screw off. There we go. Pop the handle back in. There we go. Tighten back up. Wipe that round in the back of that, just make sure there's no grit in there. Smooth as hell. Absolutely gorgeous. Right, I hope the film was helpful. Everybody keep safe, and I'll find something else to film and show you how to do. It's very easy to maintain your own reels. Like I say, it's most important is not to get any contamination on your lines. The last thing you want to be doing is getting oil, grease and that sort of stuff on your lines. It can damage your lines, it can contaminate them. You don't want that sort of stuff on your lines or your brakes. Keep it clean. If you prefer to use gloves is always a good recommendation. I tend to get my hands in, wash my hands plenty afterwards. Anyway, hope the film was helpful. We'll pop in there. This one's maintained, will be used in the near future. I like using this for, you know, like quick sessions, doing a little bit of spinning, live baiting or dead baiting or anything like that for pike. Nice piece of kit, nice little spinning reels, Shimano Katana, beautiful. Anyway, I hope the film was helpful, and I'll catch you a lot later. Don't forget to please subscribe, share, and I'll see you later.